Penguin Random House Audio presents The Modern Detective: How Corporate Intelligence is Reshaping the World by Tyler Maroney. Read for you by William Demeritt. Prologue. On February 8, 2018 at 10:22 p.m., Donald J. Trump opened his Twitter app and name-checked a private detective. "Steal of fraudulent dossier fame," the president wrote. "All tied into crooked Hillary." It was a remarkable occurrence. An American head of state publicly acknowledging the work of a private eye, in this case a former British spy named Christopher Steele. Trump had reason to fear and disparage Steele. A veteran of MI6, the United Kingdom's Foreign Intelligence Service, with expertise in Russia, Steele helps run a private intelligence firm in London called Orbis Business Intelligence. In mid-2016, during the U.S. presidential campaign, Steele uncovered what he believed to be salacious and treasonous behavior by Trump, who was then one in a crowded field of Republican candidates. The leads Steele and his contacts developed about Trump's sexual proclivities, potential blackmail material, and what Steele suspected was evidence of Russian collaboration with Trump's campaign, potential impeachment material, so alarmed him that he alerted the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with whom he had consulted on other projects. Orbis's report, what became known as the Steele dossier, had been leaked to BuzzFeed, and although the FBI had been investigating Trump's alleged collusion with Russia since mid-2016, it had the effect of a violent explosion. Political chaos and media obsession ensued. Steele found himself in the central nervous system of global political discourse. Trump's detractors cite Steele's work when compiling lists of the president's failings. Trump's supporters label it slanderous liberal dirt. When in March 2019 the report issued by special counsel Robert Mueller included no explicit evidence of collusion with Russia, Trump, although relieved, continued to blame Steele, arguing Mueller's witch hunt was spurred by the phony dossier. Steele's first client on the project was an organization financed by Paul Singer, a wealthy hedge fund manager who commits abundant resources to funding Republican causes and candidates, but who was no fan of Trump's. At the time, Singer supported Marco Rubio's candidacy. Steele had been contracted through an American research firm called Fusion GPS. This kind of investigation is often called oppo work, in which candidates for public office, constituents, or issue advocates fund research designed not just to understand their opponent's integrity and reputation, but to undermine them to gain an advantage. When in late 2016 it became clear that Trump would be the Republican nominee, Singer ended the engagement, and Fusion GPS recruited another client to fund further work to chase the tantalizing leads: Hillary Clinton's campaign. Steele and one of the founders of Fusion GPS, Glenn Simpson, a former investigative reporter for the Wall Street Journal, have joined the ranks of modern private detectives, whether revealed or reviled, who might be considered well-known. Jules Kroll, David Fechheimer, and Anthony Pellicano are some others. In 1992, the New York Times called Kroll the world's most famous gumshoe. In 2018, the San Francisco Chronicle reported that Fechheimer, who died in April 2019, was the veritable dean of American private investigators. In 2018, The Hollywood Reporter called Pellicano the private eye to the rich, famous, and distressed. In 2008, Pellicano was imprisoned for bribing police officers and wiretapping, among other misdeeds. He was released in March 2019. Steele's fame forced him underground for a spell, but it has been good for business. Orbis landed a slew of new clients, and it has been reported that the company received 2,000 job applications soon after the firm's work was revealed. Steele's notoriety brings into relief the crucial, if usually discreet, role private detectives play in modern society: smoothing the flow of global capital, resolving disputes among private citizens and corporations, and ensuring that our legal systems, government agencies, and financial institutions remain fair and transparent. Of course, not all clients have such benign motives for hiring private eyes. Why does anyone hire an investigator? To uncover wrongdoing, to right a real or perceived wrong, to punish or to exact revenge, to gain an advantage over a competitor, to satisfy a curiosity, to find a missing person or recover a stolen object, to feed paranoia, to benefit the public interest. In other words, to help satisfy basic human impulses. When people or companies are harmed by a crime, by intentional or accidental non-criminal conduct, what lawyers call a tort, by physical violence, or by reputational damage, there are scores of remedies, including the civil courts, law enforcement, government regulators, and media coverage. Private investigators are often called upon to help find the information that will help attorneys litigate, prosecutors indict, regulators sanction, and journalists report. We are everywhere. We work for large companies, government agencies, A-list movie stars, professional athletes, nonprofits, sovereign nations, media organizations, and business tycoons, among others. We are engaged by frozen food processors, video game designers, diamond dealers, jet engine manufacturers, nut sorters, collateralized mortgage brokers, coffee bean shippers, book publishers, patent licensees, sports teams, rail car builders, miners, retail chain operators, university deans, plastic pressers, building contractors, labor organizers, and pretzel sellers. Our fingerprints are on litigation battles, mergers and acquisitions, public relations campaigns, loan agreements, securities trading, labor campaigns, investments, executive hires, political campaigns, and front-page news stories. Elon Musk, Alex Rodriguez, Hewlett-Packard, Uber, Credit Suisse Group, Jay-Z, Sean Diddy Combs, Drexel Burnham Lambert, Goldman Sachs, the government of Kuwait, Elizabeth Taylor, and Tom Cruise have all hired private eyes. Even the most indigent among us benefit from the skills of investigators. Federal and state governments often not only provide defendants with lawyers, but also subsidize investigators among other experts to support a legal defense. In the United States, there are more than 35,000 private investigators, with nearly 4,000 in Florida alone, according to the U.S. Department of Labor. Many who join the trade come not with relevant university degrees in criminal justice, for instance, but are refugees from other industries: law enforcement, journalism, accounting, the labor movement, government intelligence, software development, and academia, as well as non-governmental organizations, think tanks, and law firms. Corporate investigators, as distinguished from the lone wolf gumshoe who lurks in the shadows with a telephoto lens, are often hired by wealthy investors, Fortune 500 companies, wealthy individuals, and global law firms to conduct due diligence in advance of transactions, provide support to litigators during high-stakes legal disputes, or uncover fraud within large corporations. Each detective agency has its own DNA. Some shops run networks of contractors around the globe. Others have a narrow focus in a region, Southeast Asia, say, or technology, data scraping for disinformation online, for instance. Still others are all things to all clients: providers of background checks, executive protection, forensic accounting, criminal defense, surveillance. Some market a single skill, such as political opposition research or tracking down missing assets. My firm, QRI, specializes in large, complex investigations that seek to benefit the public interest: reforming the criminal justice system, holding corrupt government officials accountable, exposing financial crimes, fighting causes of the climate crisis. Each American state regulates the detective industry in its own way. Where I live, the New York State Division of Licensing Services permits private investigators to obtain information regarding the identity, habits, conduct, movements, whereabouts, affiliations, associations, transactions, reputation, or character of any person or group of persons. We can investigate crime or wrongs done or threatened against the government of the United States of America or any state or territory of the United States of America, and we can assess the credibility of witnesses or other persons and identify the whereabouts of missing persons. We can gather information about the location or recovery of lost or stolen property and the causes and origin of or responsibility for fires or libels or losses or accidents or damage or injuries to real or personal property, or the affiliation, connection, or relation of any person, firm, or corporation with any union, organization, society, or association, or with any official, member, or representative thereof. We can...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?